a beautiful day, and it is a great day because today we celebrate St. John Chrysostom, who is the greatest saint among the fathers. You know that the tradition of iconography, or the canon of iconography inside the church, inside the sanctuary, which is the most important part of the church, has it that behind the altar we should have always St. John Chrysostom. And next to him we have the other great fathers, St. Athanasius. You heard that I studied St. Athanasius, who is the first one to lay the foundations of the theology of Orthodoxy after the emancipation of the church from the Roman, from persecutions, the first period, the first 3 centuries. The church was actually persecuted by the state and was regarded illegal. But then in the year 313, the persecution ceased. The new emperor became a Christian. His mother was Christian, Constantine the Great, and changed the whole history of the church and the world, because he allowed the bishops to gather together and sort out the problems and organization of the church plus the faith of the church. They gave us the Nicene Creed in 325. St. John Chrysostom comes last, but he's the greatest in many ways. As one who expounded the scriptures in the most profound way, there isn't anybody else in the Orthodox Church who has written as much on the Bible, on everything on the Bible. And that is known not only in the East, but in the West. He's one of the greatest exegets of all times. And he expounded them from a practical point of view. I was hoping to tell you something about him, and I had prepared a synaxarium, a summary of one of the longest lives that was written in the 10th century in Byzantium by the greatest author of synaxaria. You probably have heard this word. Synaxarium is something which is read in the synaxes, in the gathering of monks in the monastery or of the Christians in the church on the feasts. And they would read the lives of the saints. And these lives, which give us the details of who they were and what they did, especially what their contribution was. There are many of these, and they are in large volumes, because every day, all the saints, if you want to find about the life of every saint, you go to these great synaxaria. And the biggest one in Byzantium was in the 10th century by Simeon Metaphrastis. And he has written the longest one on St. John Chrysostom. But I heard that you had a nice talk this morning about my Father Bob, is that right? Yes. So I'm not going to repeat anything on St. John Chrysostom. I'll do something else in the afternoon. This morning, as Father Ted suggested, the theme that is in the thoughts of everybody is because on the 15th we start Christmas fasting until Christmas. So Christmas, as St. John Chrysostom says, is the metropolis of all the feasts. That's the title that he used. Christmas was not one of the earliest feasts to be established by the church. It actually came rather late. I'm not going to say very much about it, but I'm going to talk about the great event of Christmas, the Incarnation. This is the greatest event in history. The event that was awaited before the foundation of the world. St. Athanasius, who I'm going to use and whom I have studied, wrote a writing on the Incarnation, which is the most famous exposition of the mystery of Christ, how God became man. A subject which is central to our faith, a subject which is also very difficult, and it took 6 or 7 synods, ecumenical synods, to sort out the way we approach the mystery of Christ without actually producing wrong explanations of this mystery. Why did God become man? And what is the relation of God to man? I have been recently teaching a course on patristic anthropology. What is man in our tradition, in the Christian tradition? And that is related to the event of the Incarnation. Because the way to understand who man is the way to approach Christ. Because he is the true man. He is the new Adam who restored the old Adam. He's the one who dealt with all our problems. That's why he became a human being, to reclaim his creation. This is exactly what St. Athanasius expounds in his great work on the Incarnation. And he gives us a very schematic and a very classical exposition of the Incarnation, the mystery of God becoming man. And the implications, of course. This is a very long writing, which is the sequence to another one, when he exposed the problem of religion among human beings, man-made religion, especially paganism. In other words, man's approach to the world and to himself independently of God. Because man has inside himself, in his soul, the stamp of the divine image. Because he is made according to the image and likeness of God. And that has not been wiped out. So man is not only what modern scientists say, Homo sapiens. You know, that we came from the earth like everybody else, as we read also in the scriptures. Man was made in the image and likeness of God, and that is the first thing we learn when we open the Bible, the book of Genesis. You know that there are two accounts in Genesis. Genesis 1 tells us about God being made, God made man at the end of everything else that he had created, as the pinnacle of creation, in his image and likeness, so that he would rule, being in his image and likeness, and equipped with powers that would make him the leader of the whole of creation. He in himself combines everything else, especially because he can relate to God, and there isn't anything else that can relate to God in the way a human being does. In the second chapter of Genesis, we find a second account of the creation of man. That man was made from the dust of the earth, before the earth was cultivated. And that God breathed into this body that he created from the dust of the earth, from the soil. He breathed in another way a soul in him and became a living soul. The human soul differs from the soul of all the other living creatures, because all the other souls were made by the word alone. But this one, the human soul, was made in a special way. And that has to do with the image and likeness that man was given in relation to God. I'm not going to tell you all the details about it, but I want you to keep these two things together. That man is related to God in a special way, and man also is related to the world in another way. So he is between the spiritual existence of God, and he can communicate with God, but also he can rule and communicate and understand with the universe. There's another little thing that I should add. Man is made of body and soul, and that's what St. Athanasius and all the fathers say. Now, there is a variety of words that are used in the scripture about these things. But there is St. Paul, for instance, speaks of the outer man and the inner man, or exo-anthropos, the inner man, or exo-anthropos, the outer man. And the inner man is related to the angels. The soul is like the angels. The angels who created the spiritual world before the material world that we know. It is not said in the book of Genesis when the angels were created, but in other places in Scripture, this is made plain. And in the Holy Tradition also, we know about the angels, that they were created before the visible world. Also, we can guess when we read the story of Genesis, especially the story in paradise and the snake that appeared there, the devil, who misled the human being and led him to rebel against God. We understand that there was a fall, and the fall was not a human fall, it was an angelic fall. There is this mystery of evil that pre-existed the creation of man, and it was connected with the devil himself. St. John Chrysostom, the fathers, explain this in great detail. So, the fall was originated in the angelic world. And some of the fathers suggest that man was created to change the situation that was created by the fall of the devil. The devil was, there were 10 orders of angels, and first order, which was led by him, rebelled, and so there were 9 orders as we know them today in the liturgy, and as we know them in the tradition. But the place of the devil was taken by man. So man is an angel, but also is a creature that communicates with all the material creatures, the material world. One of the great fathers says that man is on the boundary between 2 worlds, the spiritual and the material. And that is exactly what we have in mind. The problem is, however, that man who was diverted from his root and his destiny by the devil, as the story of Genesis tells us in a simple way, and as it is elaborated in the scriptures, the fall of man, when we look at the lives of the saints and of the human beings and so on, and especially in the New Testament, when the human fall has been exposed by the Lord himself who became man, in order to restore our humanity back to its original image. Right? We understand that man's spirituality was subjected to materiality. The inner man ceased to be the leader. That's the problem of humanity, that people became more attached to material things and forgot the other aspect of their existence, spirituality, that the spirit is the leader of the body, not the body the leader of the spirit. There's no contradiction between the spirit and the body. But then the relation of the two is where we find what is right and what is wrong. When the spirit is the leader of the body, when humanity, the image and likeness of God works, and man is in relation to God, then he is in command of his body and of creation. And he knows how to deal with things in a proper way. But when he's not like this, and he's not in communion with God, then we have the reversal, that the body leads the spirit. And that is not the order of creation. This is the nature of the fall. Athanasius tells us that there are 2 causes of the incarnation. That when he took up our nature, he took a body and soul. Christ came to restore the body from what? From corruption, because that's the result of our fallenness. And the ultimate end of this corruption is death. Man was not made to die. He could remain immortal. In the scriptures we read about a few people who did not die, like the prophet Elijah. A man would not have died had he not sinned, had not this reversal of the order of our existence taken place, so that the inner man was subjected to the outer man, because the inner man, the spirit, is prior to the body. And the body then would have developed differently, just as when a young human being is born, a young baby. We see what a miracle this is, and how it grows, and it's full of life. It reaches maturity, but then it becomes weaker, the body. This kind of situation would not have arisen. Man was made for immortality, we read in the